Welcome to another episode of the No Ceilings Podcast. I'm Tyler Metcalf, joined, as always, by Tyler Rucker. Rucker, how are we doing?
Fantastic. It's going to be a fun one. I'm doing great, Metcalf. Basketball is in full swing lately. Just diving into the film, NBA, all that stuff, all that fun stuff. How are you doing, sir?
Fantastic. Christmas season is here. Big Christmas guy. So we finally finished off the Christmas tree last night. Full lights, ornaments, the whole shebang. And woke up this morning to just a beautiful 5 inches of snow on the ground. Perks of working remote. Didn't have to go in and drive through that, but my wife did. So sorry, honey. My snowblower was in such a giving mood. It was really feeling the Christmas spirit that when I tried to start, it's like, nah, go fuck yourself. Having a day.
I feel like we've had this discussion before, but just
Probably.
big Christmas guy too. And it always feels like you have a story about how like the snow's impacting and you have to deal with that. And I'm like, man, I always dreamed of having like a winter where I have to deal with that problem. And then you hear someone go through it and you're like, no, maybe I'm good. I'm probably good.
Yeah, but on the plus side, I can step outside in the summer, whereas you will evaporate.
No, I can't. Yeah. No, I can't do it. If I step outside, it's got to be running to a pool. So, it's pretty good though. But yeah, I love to hear that. You got to love snow around, the holidays.
It's the best. It's the best. It gets old quickly, but you deal with it.
You can deal with it.
All right, we got a loaded episode today. Ace Bailey, Tre Johnson, little Jeremiah Fears, a little bit of green room at the end, but bit of housekeeping up top. The site is running full steam ahead, as always. Really good stuff going up all the time. We're talking Jeremiah Fears later this episode, and if you're listening live, make sure to go over to noceilingsnba.com where I will have a full profile right up on him. Really fun player, one of the most pleasant surprises of this draft class so far. Also had an interview with Rich Stamen where we broke down Tristan Da Silva's rookie year so far on the podcast feed. Go check that out, Rookie Roulette, and have a Jared McCain episode coming next week as well. Should be a good one. Also, really enjoyed Nick's editor's notes up on the site today. So always good when Nick has a moment to breathe and get a little writing done himself. Anything for you, Rucker?
No, I think
lazy is always classic.
No. I got some thoughts. The team's been kicking ass. Everyone's been really rolling some fantastic stuff on the site.
Oh, and Albert's Danny Wolf.
Albert's Danny Wolf thing was fantastic. Anytime I get a notification about someone compared to Vlade Divac, I'm pumped. And Albert's just that creative genius. I absolutely love it. So everyone's firing on all engines right now. We got Steven back. Shout out Steven. That's a big one. It's gonna be a fun couple months coming up. We're really cooking right now, and Metcalf's been killing it with those rookie roulettes. Shout out Rich. Yes. Nick's thing is one of the editor's piece is one of my favorite things on the site because it's a real good, like in a weird way, a good like elbow to us of like, you guys haven't done this yet. And Nick gets to kind of go a little wild. So I always love those. And he does a great job as always. So man, things are getting fun with this class. You said you want to talk about Jeremiah Fears later. Can you contain it? Do you want to just?
No, I want to save them for the end because I feel like the bulk of this episode may get a little contentious, may get a little fiery. So I want to end on a high note. I want to end with some fun, some levity, some excitement because the middle of this could go any direction.
Yes.
Enough stalling. I kind of want to start just big picture discussion on how like these top prospects are being discussed and evaluated and talked about in the public space. Obviously the two big ones, it feels like right now, where the discourse has just gotten really weird and really negative in a shockingly unnecessary way, it feels like, is Ace Bailey and Tre Johnson. And for a lot of it, it seems like it's gone past the point of nitpicking and identifying weaknesses and improvement areas and trying to actually evaluate these guys and instead just flat out shitting on them constantly. So we'll dive into their games, their likes, their dislikes, and there'll be plenty for both across the board. But kind of big picture, Rucker, how do you go about discussing and evaluating and selling guys that are consistently at like the top of the board, considered the elite prospects, the top tier prospects?
It's tough because, I kind of mentioned this a couple times with writing at NoCeilingsNBA.com. First plug, under 6 minutes. We always want results, which is fine. We're human beings. We want things to happen quick. We don't want to wait for it. And if someone is taking a while to deliver on hype or show us something to get excited about, we get impatient.
Yeah.
And preseason hype is probably one of the most dangerous things for me with scouting. If everyone's pumping up someone, then you kind of automatically feel like, oh, am I supposed to be intrigued? Am I supposed to be wowed? And I always take it as a way of like, hey, let me make my own evaluation. Because if you're evaluating, if you're scouting, if you're putting in the work, you should be trusting yourself. You don't need to be taking in what everyone else is saying. Like, you can use that to help your evaluation, but shouldn't sway your opinion or sway your work. So with a lot of these guys, I'm very patient. It's been very interesting about some of the comments, how harsh people are. Because I always say, like, you have to do check-ins on these guys. Like, these are young basketball players. These are young human beings. You have to do your check-ins throughout the year to see how things are developing. I think making drastic reactions after, 10 games, pretty tough. We say it all the time. Metcalf, I think, spotlight it the best. A lot of these guys go from being the guy to not being the guy. You have to figure out how to play a different role now. So it takes time to adjust. It really does. So I'm always very patient. I get why people are trying to be like, hey, doesn't look good, I'm out. It's like, okay, talk to me in a couple months. You might have a different opinion. What about you? Like, do you get swayed? Do you get worried as your panic meter start clicking now? Or do you try to get like halfway in? Because I feel like conference play is big for me. Yeah. If you haven't started to look a little different midway conference play, then I'm starting to get a little anxious, concerned.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's all about, was today better than yesterday?
Yes.
Were there steps made in the right direction? Not, oh, are you now averaging 25 instead of 8? I'm not asking you to climb Mount Everest in a week, but did you make it up the path a little bit? And when those, and sometimes there are steps back and, guys relapse into some bad habits, and it's like, okay, those popped up again. How quickly are they going to get worked back out? Or was, that high point more of an outlier? So I always try to be patient with these guys. In some respect, it's impossible not to be reactive at some point. But especially when we're talking about guys at the top of the draft, I think it's really important to really figure out, okay, what are the improvement areas that are needed, and how feasible is it that this player actually improves in those areas? Is it a damning weakness where it's like, wow, this guy cannot and will never shoot? There's no touch. The mechanics are a mess. There's no confidence. Or is it, man, he's kind of getting good looks, but he's taking really difficult stuff and it's just not falling for him right now? Then, even like playmaking numbers, it's okay. Is he just not passing at all? Is he throwing it into the 10th row every single time? Is he missing obvious reads? Is he not getting to the rim because he's not an athlete? Or is there really aggressive gap help and he's just making the simple read and passing out of it instead of barreling into a defender? It's trying to figure out the context for whether the numbers are good or bad and applying the film to those numbers as context. Numbers are great, but especially with these young college kids in a new situation where they may not be the guy like they were for the last 4 years of high school, because now they're the second guy or the third guy, or in some cases for a lot of these guys coming off the bench. It's like, okay, what is the situation? How has it changed for him? And what are the steps being made game after game? And are there improvements that we're seeing? And if not, now it's time to get reactive. And if there are, even if it's small stuff on the margins, it's like, okay, That's really encouraging. That's what I need to see. And even then, occasionally we get guys really showing out and showing massive improvements in areas that we never expected from. So I try to be patient, but use the numbers as a guide, but never a determinant.
Yeah, I think numbers can lie. And especially if you're going off of a 1 year, I always talk to, when I was getting serious about this years and years ago in a galaxy far, far away, I always talk to scouts and I always try to pick their minds of like, hey, what would what's some advice? What do you look for? What do you think? And always what I got told is 1 year doesn't tell the story. And because you're going from being the guy to thinking as a recruit, this is the perfect place for my game. They're going to promise me everything. I can go crazy here. This is going to be the perfect offense. They're going to do this. You get 5 games in, you're like, what the hell's going on? Can't figure this out. Like, I'm struggling. So it could be fit. It could be system. Just could not be maybe the way things are going. Like Jaden McDaniels is a perfect example. Yeah. Watching him at Washington, you're kind of like, man, there's talent here. And then some of my least favorite film I've ever watched. One of the guys I struggled with the most, I talked to someone that's now a GM. And at that time I was like, what am I missing with Jaden? And he's like, got to go back and watch. He can play. Yeah. Bad year. It's 1 year doesn't tell it. And I was like, damn, always comes back. That's why I think I always say, like, watch the tape. Don't look at the numbers and make conclusions. Watch the tape. If you watch the film and you see what the numbers are telling you and it backs up and you're like, okay, I see it. Mm-hmm. Then I get it. But there's, I've watched guys where they finish with 3 assists and I watch the game and I'm like, they could have had 15. Yeah. We're getting guys wide open all night and just none of his teammates can make shots. So the tape don't lie sometimes. You can argue each way, but I'm a big, like, the numbers can lie. Like, the numbers are not the final, the grand jury and the executioner. The tape will tell all. So I think it's just really important that you've got to look into these guys, understand the situation. Are they playing a different role than they were last year? Like, are they now, the third guy on the offense or the third look compared to being, here's the ball, go take care of everything. You get to distribute, facilitate. It's just context is everything. And sometimes these guys just take a little bit of time to figure out the speed and their new role and how to be effective and consistent. So I'm being patient, but I'm also making notes because you have to check in on these guys and make plenty of notes and see, like, okay, I'm going back to my notes from beginning of the year. I still have the same concerns. That's alarming. So I think it's just really important. You got to kind of be patient as you can be with these guys.
Well, someone that we've been trying to be really patient with and have plenty of notes on is Ace Bailey, who we'll dive into right after a quick break. Ace Bailey, 6'10" freshman from Rutgers, was the number 2 overall recruit coming out of high school, was number 1 before Cooper Flagg reclassified. He's struggling. Some really, really high-level flashes, the size, the athleticism, the shot-making ability, it's all evident. It's really fun. A lot of concerns with, the effort level, the ball security, the playmaking, the rim pressure, all of that kind of stuff. Where do you want to start with Ace Bailey?
I have no idea. I kind of wanted to go off of you because I've been very passionate about my stock with the Ace Bailey fan club. Feel like I've been very anxious to go at it. Some nights you just have a night where you're like, hey, let's throw down. And I feel like I have had a couple of those nights when it comes to the Ace Bailey hate. And I understand all of it because I kind of like those moments because I'm just a wacko, but I like when people are just hating on a guy and I'm like, I don't agree. And then you get passionate and you're like, all fired up. And I'm like, throw on the tape. I'm going to watch 4 hours of tape now. And I get what everyone's concern is, but I wanted to hear where you want to start because I feel like this, like if you're listening, folks, like buckle up. I feel like this one's going to go all over the place. And I can see it in your eyes, Metcalf. Like, you're ready to roll. So I'm just trying to push you to kind of Madness is like gravity. All you got to do is give it a little push. I'm giving you a little push here.
And it's really tough because the good is incredible, but the bad is about as bad as it could possibly be. And there hasn't been a whole lot of in between. Like I feel like we rarely get just an okay game from him. The good at 6'10", being that level of shot maker, that is the exact type of guy that you take at the top of a draft. That is the guy you swing for the fences on and you hope it works out. Where intel comes into play, you buy into the kid, you buy into the player, you buy into the employee, the worker, all of that kind of stuff. And you really believe in his work ethic and ability to grow his skills from being just kind of an inefficient, tough shot maker to a deadly on-ball assassin, because the shots that he can make and consistently does make, I don't think there's anyone else in this draft class that can match him shot for shot.
No. Maybe you could probably argue maybe the guy that we're going to talk about later, but he's also 5 inches shorter. The problem with Ace is I completely agree. I absolutely still adore him as a prospect. I'd be probably having him in my top 5 right now. Like I think
I still have him at 3, but I've bumped him down from 2 and out of a tier with Dylan Harper. So
yeah, I think I moved him down to 4 the other night. I got pretty angry watching film. I got pretty angry, and then I told Metcalf this off the air, but I'll just make everyone's. It's one of the most frustrating ones I've watched. I watched a couple of games. I was just like foaming at the mouth, just like, ugh, like I'm all over the place. Took a break. Then I was like, I have to watch more. Found some games that I loved. I was like, oh man, this is going to be a battle. It's a war zone this year. And then I found another part of his game that I was not expecting to like that I liked. Then I found some that I thought was ugly. And I got so down the rabbit hole, I was like, I need to go back to this high school stuff to see if this is like accurate. And then it doesn't match in high school. Like high school looks more just wild. It really is a roller coaster. But then I kind of came back to what I thought about Ace coming into this year. I thought this was going to be the roller coaster guy. Yeah. This is going to be some of the games where you're like, holy crap, like he could be a top 3 lock. And then there's going to be some games where you're like, woo, he needs to get some time. Like you need to be patient. There's games, Metcalf, where he looks so confident offensively, and you're just like, oh man, like I would swing. If I was a team, I would be swinging. This is the swing I would want to take. Like this is the franchise-altering swing that it is scary when it comes together. And I'm talking like the Giannis, like all of a sudden, oh man, look how it fell into place, and this is one of the best players, and he's dangerous. Or no, you don't throw those names around. Honestly, Giannis was a freak of nature with his body filling out and stuff. I don't think that's going to happen to Ace, but you get what I'm saying. And there's other games where I'm like, oh man, like when would you take him?
Like that Ohio State game was like, you're not even getting cardio. You're just standing out there. You're useless right now. And then he follows it, and that was after a Texas A&M game where there was a lot that I liked, and he followed it up with what I thought were 2 really solid games against Penn State and Seton Hall. It's like this fluctuation is. It feels like a guy who doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing on the court right now.
I don't mean this in a bad way. Like everyone that is going to hear this, I don't mean this in a bad way. I had the same vibes watching Gigi Jackson early in the year. Yeah. As a prospect.
There are a lot of similarities.
It was a lot of like, I'm competitive. I want to figure it out. I just sometimes don't know what to do, which is fine. It just shows your youth. It shows you need experience and you need playing time and you need to just kind of get reps to figure it out. And it shows you have incredible talent, but how quickly is everything going to start to click? Now, Gigi had those concerns throughout the year. There were some questions about the motor, intangibles.
But he also wasn't playing with an elite offensive creator and engine like a Dylan Harper, who Ace is, having to adjust from being the guy in high school, the top overall recruit, and not only being more of an off-ball guy on his team, but a guy who's getting significantly outplayed by his teammate.
Right. And I think people fascinate with like, okay, the assist numbers. Completely understand.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah, steer me. Go wherever.
No, keep going. Sorry.
The assist numbers, like everything. All the concerns are warranted, but I also think like this is still an extremely raw talent that we were not expecting him to be just ready to roll right out of the gate. Like if you watched him out of high school, you were like, okay, it's a little funky still. Like it looks like someone that was 6'3" a year ago and all of a sudden just became 6'10" and was like, how does all this work? Like there's games where he looks so confident, like he is determined, understands what to do. Then there's games where you're just like, who's this guy? Like it's just really strange. Like the lapses or like the mistakes that he'll make, that it just kept me up. I was like, what's going on? I had to turn on somebody else's film to like balance my brain to go back into that. Like it's just rough.
And it really just, sorry to kind of keep circling back to this, but it just feels like a guy who's playing a role that he is so uncomfortable in, where in high school, it was a lot of, hey, catch it in the post, catch it on the elbow and go to work in those areas. You may not be bringing the ball up every time, but the offense is running 1000% through you. You are the end and all and be all. And now it's like, yeah, maybe the ball swings to you and maybe you need to make an extra pass. And you really see that with his lack of off-ball movement too, where even just simple stuff like sinking down into the corner when he's above the break and his teammate drives baseline and he doesn't move, it's because he's never done that before. Not to just, kind of throw out excuses for him, but that's the sense I'm getting from him. It's very, very, very rare that I ever get the impression that he doesn't care or that he's not trying or that he's just like, fuck it. What am I doing here? I never get those vibes from him.
We've heard the opposite.
It truly feels like he just is unaware of what he's supposed to do. And that's a problem in and of its own right. With the offensive creation stuff, all of, the talk has been about the playmaking numbers, and they're bad. He's not a good passer, doesn't have great vision. The stuff that kind of bothers me, though, is more of like, oh, well, he can't even get to the rim. And then the clips people show are when there's really aggressive gap help and help defenders collapsing down into the lane, taking away his driving lane. It's like, yeah, he passed out of that because there are three guys standing right in front of him. So is he making the right decision and making the right pass, or is he unathletic and can't get to the rim? Make up your mind on what you want to dog him for.
I love that. That was some heat there. That's the thing is what bugs me is when people get caught up in an area and then like they don't match. You can't just complain about something without like those don't match. Like what you're trying to talk about. The playmaking bothers me mainly because I've gone back and watched his previous stuff and there's vision flashes where like, I'm like, and I don't know if you remember this, but like he had a lot of really good looks before this year, like coming up in high school, like out of the post.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like he was so comfortable and so like great dimes, like on time. This year, it seems like they keep putting him on like that ISO opportunity, like on each elbow or each corner. And he looks so hesitant to throw the pass. Like he's throwing like a second late or whatnot. And I'm like, it feels very herky-jerky robotic. And then you get those games, it's a nightmare to watch. And then you get like the Penn State game. Was that the one where he had like the dribble step through follow? And I was like, oh my gosh, that looks so, it was almost like a Euro and everyone was collapsing on him. He slithered through for like a nice touch off the glass. He's had a couple, the Alabama game, the A&M game, you're just watching, you're like, I'd take this guy top 3 easy. Like, it's just fantastic, the tools and upside. But yeah, like that Ohio State game, I wanted to break my TV. I was just like, what am I watching? He's throwing no-look passes 3 feet out of bounds.
Yeah.
To start the game, like it's not like he was in a rhythm and just throwing it. He's throwing swings to the other wing that's just 5 feet from the guy. And it's just plays you rewind and you're like, is he supposed to come up? Like, confusing. So it is the roller coaster prospect this year. You get 2 good ones, then you go down, and then you're trying to figure out, can I get some consistency? Can we kind of level out here? And at the same time, you go back and look at some other, forwards. Like, I've done this, like, and I'm like, okay, am I being too harsh? Let's look at like some first 9 games of guys, and I'm like, oh, some guys take a while to get going in this season. Like, you have to kind of figure it out. So I'm being patient with Ace, but yeah, I've got plenty of notes now. I have more notes on him right now than I do on Minnie, because I'm like, there's going to be a lot of stuff I need you to show me to kind of get in that top 3 world. I'll ask you this, Metcalf, and then you can go crazy. Is there any prospect like Ace, like you feel like you watched and you're like, this reminds me of like how I struggled with them or something? Not exactly. I'm not going to, take you to court on this. I'm just, McDaniels is a big one for me.
There's a lot of, and we mentioned him earlier, but there's a lot of G.G. Jackson.
Yeah.
And, it's like, man, your shot selection is questionable. You're not passing a whole lot and almost doing nothing off ball. But, God, if this hits,
right.
Fuck, if this hits, you're going to be an all-star. So, he really feels like the guy where it's like landing spot could be everything with him. And it's like, all right, we've seen him work in person. I never got the sense that he was a bad teammate or uncoachable or unwilling to learn or work or be criticized or any of that stuff. He felt like an awesome teammate, an awesome player, and an awesome prospect, and someone that could be really easily molded and developed into a hell of a player. The physical tools alone are fascinating. So like that kind of stuff makes me more encouraged about the long-term feasibility of him improving as an off-ball scorer, because his movement shooting right now is already really impressive. Like with the occasional times that they run him off of screens, it's mostly on like baseline out of bounds stuff, and have him hit like a movement 3. It typically looks good. And he's kind of struggling to separate from his guy in isolation. So I'd love to see more of that kind of stuff. Just get him involved, get him active, force him to move within the offense, and stop just plopping him in the corner or on the wing above the break and occasionally throwing it to him and be like, hey, go ISO. Because whenever he does attack in isolation, it's all incredibly predetermined. And that kind of reminds me of what we talked about with Jake Rosen a couple of years ago with Shaden Sharp.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, when he catches it, he's going right every single time. He never drives to his left. He doesn't have a whole lot of counter moves. And his game or his shot creation right now just screams of, hey, I've always kind of just been bigger and longer than everyone, and I'm just going to shoot over you. And to some extent, it works. And he's a good enough shooter where it can work. But the second he feels that first bump, he typically picks up his dribble, and maybe he'll pivot once or twice and knock down a pull-up jumper, 18-footer, or, make just the first pass out of it and move on. But there's never that bump, absorb contact, keep the dribble alive, counter to the left, counter back to the right. None of that is there. And that concerns me more with what his offensive ceiling can ultimately be, because if he's not having simple counter moves, like even Cooper right now has like 2-3 dribble counter move. And, it's typically hang dribble to his right, crossover to his left, and then maybe a spin back or something like that. It's not overly complicated, but there's some stuff there. Ace I don't know if he doesn't, but so far Ace isn't showing that. And that concerns me the most with this kind of long-term offensive ceiling.
I think he has it. You know what I think it really is? It comes down to is what you were hinting at earlier before. Like when you're the bigger guy in high school, your go-to moves are always there. They always worked.
Like, and typically when we talk about that, it's the uber athletic centers.
Right. We talked about it with Durant. Like we were like, hey, he's just bigger and stronger than everyone. He's dunking on everyone alive. Like what happens when you don't have that? And I think with Bailey, it's a rude awakening quick when you're like, my first, second, and third move isn't there now. Like, they figured it out. So you're trying to figure out, how to get success, how to successfully beat people. And smaller guys are going to get up in because they're like, oh, your handle might be a little loose. So in a weird way, if you're a smaller guy, you might be like, I can cause more problems defensively. So that's why I'm being patient with him. Like we had same stuff with Brandon Miller we were talking about. Like we were like, why can't he finish around the basket? Why can't he pass the ball? Like what's going on? He was shooting like 35, 44 in the beginning of the year. People were freaking out. And then all of a sudden it got quiet. It can just click. All you need is a little heater, and then things really get interesting in the draft scene. I have like a rule with scouting. I don't compare prospects to like the obvious ones. Like, don't compare to Kevin Garnett. Don't compare to Kevin Durant. Like, there's just guys like, I'm like, no, there's only one of those. We don't need to do it. We don't need to compare to Jokic all the time. There's a big man that can pass. Like,
okay. Yeah, but what if he's white and kind of chubby?
Okay, then that's fine. So I will say though, like I'm prefacing that way. I don't believe Ace Bailey is going to be Kevin Durant. I believe Ace Bailey wants to be like Kevin Durant because most guys do. So I watched Ace and I was like, you know what? I'm going to see, because I ran some numbers on these guys and I was like, I want to see what Durant looked like his freshman year at Texas just to start out the year. And I'm watching games and it's like, there's a lot of similarities where I was like, oh man, that's a tough shot. That's a tough shot. And then in my head, I'm like, it's Kevin fucking Durant. Yes, it's a tough shot. He made it look easy.
It's a tough shot for 99% of guys.
Exactly. And that's where you have to remind yourself, like, I'm going to say this right now. I watched all of Ace's shots this year. There's a lot of ugly ones that I'm like, oh my gosh.
What are you doing?
Steve Smith or Grant Hill was doing play-by-play in a game, and literally, like, I texted you. He like blurted out, "Bad shot," like very loud, louder than any play-by-play guy should do. And I was like, "Oh gosh, that was terrible." So there's a lot of those moments while I'm watching, like, "Oh gosh." But then you get to some of the shots where people are like criticizing, like, "That's a tough shot." It's like he's 6'10". A guy's guarding him is 6'5". That's not a tough shot with a high release. Like that's a good shot for him. If he's getting a little 15-foot elbow or baseline jumper, that's his bread and butter. That's fine. So you have to remind yourself of that sometimes. It's tricky for these big guys, these lengthy wings that are so young and thin to like, oh, why can't they be, AI out there crossing up people? It's like, you just don't move like that.
Because the ball has to travel twice the distance.
Exactly. And I think you have to start figuring out how important your footwork is and how important like setting guys up is. So I'm not saying like, hey, everything's fine. I'm still in love with Ace. There's a lot of questions, but I am thinking like, let's just be patient here and wait. But yeah, the shot selection gets a little like, he takes heat checks when he doesn't have a heater going.
Yeah.
And that's what frustrates me. Like he'll hit one jumper and then take a worse jumper pretty quickly. And I'm like, J.R. Smith mentality. We need to get away from that. And when he does get away from that, he plays good basketball.
And I think for me, at least, I think shockingly, some of his best basketball has come on the defensive end.
Which I was not ready for.
Neither was I. And the off-ball stuff is really hit or miss. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's bad. It's, again, not a whole lot of in between with the off-ball. But I think on ball, he's playing really well with his kind of point of attack defense, sliding his feet, getting down in the stands, playing with some physicality. I've really, really been enjoying his on ball defense. And I think like some of his defensive metrics aren't insane, but I think his block rate is like just under 3 and his steal rate's just under 2. So not record setting numbers by any means, but solid and way better than I kind of expected them to be.
His defense is way better than I thought it was going to be. Way better. Like, I'm very optimistic about the defense now. Now, like, if everything else offensively starts kind of leveling out here, and that keeps going on the same trajectory, I will get all the way back in. I will be buying everyone's stock that's selling right now. It's just like, I was very impressed with the on-ball stuff. I understand. I agree with you about the off-ball. There's some games where it just seems like, hey, you're not really knowing what to do. I wanted to talk about this.
It looked like kind of like what we talked about with the offense of him just learning to do new things, where instead of rotate or playing middle of his zone or rotating from a dunker spot to 5 feet to the other side of the lane, it's collapsing down from the opposite corner or above the break from the wing and making multiple rotations. It's stuff that he's never done before. So I feel like we can actively see the wheels spinning in his head when he's having to do some of that stuff, but the most consistent stuff has been on ball. Sorry to interrupt.
No, he's having to play big at times. They have no size. I think Corey saw him in person. He's like, I think Ace is their tallest player. And I was like, that's not good. When your guy's 6'10", 200, he's going to be the beast on the board. So like, I think there's times where he's also realizing like, oh shit, I gotta be rebounding. I gotta be in the post. Like I gotta be around the glass. And it's just, I think he's trying to kind of play a wide range of roles with that offense too. So like, I'm not making excuses because there is a lot of stuff on film that I'm like, that's you. That's on you.
Yeah.
I wanted to say this earlier, like when we started, like everything I've heard about his intel is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the type of player where people have asked us, like, why is intel so important? This is why it's so important. Yeah. If you get the intel and his intangibles are fantastic and he's a relentless worker, that's who you want to gamble on. If you get the other side, you're like, oh man, I might stay away. Like, but if you get a guy that's
talented head case who's super raw and like doesn't really want to put the work in,
right? And I've heard the opposite.
Exactly.
I've heard just like relentless, great kid, great teammate. Like, so I think maybe it could even just be something where he's pressing a little bit, trying to figure it out. And when things are good, it's dangerous in a fun way. Yeah. When things are bad, it's okay. Like, but that's why some of these players, just the upside's tremendous. And it's, hey, can you be patient? And if you can, you're going to unlock something really, really special. And I think that's where I just keep coming back with Ace. It's like, this might be a project that takes a little bit more time, but the payoff could be tremendous.
Anything else with Ace, or you want to move on to Tre Johnson?
Where would you take him?
Ace?
Yeah.
Depending on the team too.
No, don't give me the political answer. I just depending. Oh, okay. Sometimes I need to shut up before I talk. Yeah, I agree. I'd still take him that early if you have the right team. Now, if I was Washington,
yeah, like team. If I'm Washington, I'm not super pumped about it. If I'm New Orleans, I'm hoping Cooper or Dylan is there.
If I'm Washington and get 3, I would take Ace pretty fast. If I was Washington and had 2, I might be taking Mr. Harper, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, like if I had the second pick, it depends what team I am. If I have the third pick, he's probably not getting past me.
Yeah, I'd still take him that early because that's we talked about it earlier. That is the swing. You're up there and you're swinging. Like, that's when you're that high, you're swinging. So, no, that's all I got. That was a good rant. Good rant.
Let's move on to Tre Johnson after our last break. Tre Johnson, shooting guard out of Texas. Man, can this kid score? But so much more to his game. Again, Rucker, where do you kind of want to start with him?
Why don't people like him?
I don't know. I'm a big fan.
I guess
big fan.
There's people that like him. People don't love him. What am I missing? I've texted you this question 5 times this week. What am I missing?
I think people just can't move past the Cam Thomas comparison.
I can't stand it.
Like, I kind of get it because, he can devolve into shot chucking at times, but I think his feel on both ends of the floor is so much higher than Cam is, and I don't think he's as good of a scorer as Cam was. I personally, I don't like the comp really at all. I think they're 2 significantly different players.
I think they're way different. Yeah. The Ace Bailey, Michael Porter Jr., and Cam Thomas Tre Johnson comp is literally gonna I'm gonna go to war with it. And it's no slander to Cam Thomas. I still like Cam Thomas, but it's just kind of like they're different players.
Yeah.
Like one's 2 inches taller at least.
Yeah, I think that's what Steven in the chat shouted out. That I think Tre's a couple inches taller.
I'm not ready to get my spicy take. I absolutely I'm all in. I love everything. Like I think, was it the last No Ceilings mock draft?
Yep.
Yeah, I was ready to go to war, and then I did a deep dive, and I'm like, I'm really ready to go to war now. So like, I understand. We always say this, Metcalf. Like I'm fine if people don't that evaluate and scout don't agree with me. I am fine. I just love to kind of be like, tell me why you don't like them. Like, and it's mainly like I'm having fun. Like shout out Nathan. Nathan and I always go, to war with some of these interactions, and I will tell him after. Like I texted him after the last mock draft thing because me and him were kind of butting heads there, and I was like, sometimes I want someone to just go back and forth with, because I'm like, tell me why I'm wrong, or tell me what you're seeing that I don't see. And I respect everyone's opinion that does this, or even fans, if you want to talk, because if you tell me something I'm not seeing, I want to go see if I can see it. And there's people that are just not sold on Trey, and I'm like, man, I don't understand. Like, I really like him a lot. I've got him at 5.
I have him at 4.
Good. So I feel like the film doesn't, this is where I think the numbers are lying. Because I think the passing on film, I think is much better.
There's some really high level shit to it.
There's some really, you go watch that UConn game, there is some holy crap, feel, vision, setup sequences that I'm like, can draft this kid and just start doing high fives around the room. I'm going to say it right now because I'm on a heater. I went back and watched UConn film from the 90s, and I'm seeing Ray Allen. He gives me so much vibes. No, he doesn't have the pop, but the shots, he doesn't have the off-ball quickness down yet. It's close, but he has that, you can be right in his wheelhouse. He can shoot quick. He has that still little dribble where you're like, oh, I feel like there's more handle there, or it's developing, but you want a little bit more. But no, Ray had pop.
Yeah, that athlete.
No, I'm talking Ray early.
Yeah, Milwaukee
UConn days.
Ray Allen.
No, I'm talking early UConn, freshman, sophomore.
Yeah,
because he played 3 years at UConn.
Wild.
Imagine Tre Johnson for 2 more years. We'd be freaking out. So that's what I'm saying. The early UConn Ray Allen. I watched it and I was like, oh, it's a lot of similarities going on right now. And I like his defense.
Yeah.
So where are we at right now? Because go ahead. I'm just very
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't get the.
Well, what do you want to talk about? I'll pull it out of you. What do you want to talk about? What do you like?
Let's stick on the offense.
Okay, stick on the offense.
Because the go-to with him is the shooting and the scoring, and it's insane. I think their last game, they flashed a graphic. He scored 18 points or something in 10 straight games. Not bad. But it's his balance, his footwork, his handle, and his confidence. And shout out Steven in the chat for mentioning his decisiveness of he doesn't need a big window. So many of his shots that he'll effortlessly knock down. It's just a simple little jab step creates an extra couple inches of room, and that shot's going up because he's that confident in his shot, and it's going in a lot. So it's not a bad shot. And if they stop going in, they still won't be bad shots because that's what he practices. You can tell so much of the stuff that he does on the court is stuff that he has really put in a lot of work on. And it's not shit that he's just experimenting with out there. It's very different. But when we talk about his passing, it's not in the sense of, oh, yeah, he can be a point guard. No, he's a shooting guard. But his passing then expands his scoring gravity and his scoring versatility and his scoring ability, because that UConn game was a perfect example because he started getting hot, went on a tear, and then UConn started sending multiple defenders at him. And that's when he started using his playmaking vision and his passing accuracy to create for others, where he would attack the closeout, draw a second defender. Now he's taken one out of the play, pulled another off of his teammate, forced multiple rotations. He's reading those and then making the skip pass to the opposite corner. That's the kind of passing that high-level scorers kind of need to have. And when we talk about the scoring with him, it rocks. It's so much fun. but it's amplified and made even more deadly and impressive because he then has that ability to counter defensive rotations and defensive coverages with that passing vision. He's still more of a shooting guard, combo guard to me, but even go back and watch the FIBA USA film when him and Asa Newell were playing with Ron Holland and those guys. He was kind of playing point guard, and his passing and his feel and decision making were fucking incredible. Him and Asa were two of the best players every single game on that court, and they were a year younger than everyone else. I get that the playmaking numbers aren't outlandish with him. I don't really care because everything on tape screams that this dude's playmaking and passing is really, really high level stuff.
Well, the FIBA stuff, we loved it when we did those episodes in the summer. We were just like, the playmaking looks fantastic. Yeah. And then this is where this is what I was talking about earlier. Like, the numbers can lie because who the hell's scoring on the team? We've watched Arthur Kaluma play for 8 years. Like, I understand Kaluma could play, but like, they need him to score. Like, he is their bucket machine. And the UConn game was so damn impressive because what you just said, like, they were down big. He was getting on fire. UConn started sending everyone at him. Diarra was guarding him and just putting him. It was fantastic defense. I was like, my goodness. And I was so impressed with Tre's patience and just, he was battling with him. He was unfazed, which told me everything you want to see with a young player of like confident, and he was relentless. Like, Diarra had him in like hell for 3 possessions, and like on the third straight one, Tre had made a shot every time. And the third straight one, you just see Diarra kind of give a look after, like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, he was just like, I can't get this guy to miss. So then he started distributing, and there was a couple reads. Like, he had a wrap under when 2 guys collided on him baseline for an easy dunk. He had a fantastic sequence in the opposite corner, like brought it back to set up a great look for the big. Like, there was just some stuff where I was like, oh, you're cooking. Like, no one's stopping you right now. So that's a takeover ability. Like, and then I saw some defensive stuff that game where I'm just like, oh, this is fantastic. It's just one of those games you circle. You're like, oh man, like, I'm gonna come back to this one later in the year. Like, I'm gonna come back, remind myself if I need to, of like, this is what it could look like when everything's cooking. I'm just a big fan. I feel like people really are just looking at that assist number.
Yeah.
And it's you got to watch tape because you watch the UConn game, you're like, this is how he impacts winning. They were down big and he almost brought him back by himself and place was going nuts. Like, he plays defense too. It's not like this is the offensive minded only. Like, he battles.
Yeah. So, last thing for me for the offensive end is this is where projection and actual evaluation and looking into the future comes into play, because he's already kind of this physical and dynamic creating on ball, but he's not an overly explosive athlete, and he's pretty skinny right now. I would be shocked if he stays this skinny for his entire NBA career. So right. you look at how physical he is in the mid-range and getting downhill. Now add 10, 15 pounds of muscle to that, plus, another 2-3 years of NBA level experience and strength and conditioning. Man, his on-ball creation and scoring and playmaking arsenal is just going to continue to expand. So the numbers are a great starting point to try and figure out what happened. Then you have to go into the film and figure out how and why it happened. His defensive numbers scream the same thing. He's not an overly disruptive defender. Like, his block and steal rates are just over 1, I think. So, like, really kind of run-of-the-mill, mediocre stuff. But then you watch him, and I love the footwork. I love the way that he plays with his chest and tries to cut off drives and talks his shit and makes rotations and tags and recovers. It's the feel and just being in the way. He's not a chaotic defender. He's not an overly high energy, creating, or disrupting stuff type of defender. But it's really rare that I watch a defensive possession and be like, oh man, where was Tre? Like, he totally whiffed there. He couldn't get around that screen at all. The footwork was lazy. He's out of his defensive stance. Just negligent ball watching. It's really, really rare. Obviously, he's a freshman. There's some of that stuff, but it's rare that those kind of compound on top of each other.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, my only nitpick with him defensively is like there's a couple times where I'm like, I wish he'd get a little lower in your stance. Like he just kind of gets, but it seems like it's a high school thing of like a bad habit where you think you could just stick with everyone and then you kind of just get upright.
Yeah.
But I think those are always getting ironed out and everything. But I thought the footwork's fantastic. He battles. It's not just like I like how you said that. It's not just like chaos defender. It is I'm gonna beat you defensively. Like we're competing. Let's go at it. And I'm a sucker for guys too. When they force a shot clock violation, they just freak out and start clapping and giving high fives at the bench. So I checking a lot of boxes with him. And I go back to, was it the Syracuse game where he just couldn't make a shot to make his life? Like he kept battling. No, he wouldn't give up. He kept trying to find a way. And I think the off night is one of my favorite things to scout because you learn a lot about it. And Trey's going to battle. You're never going to, like we always say one of the scariest red flags is when I don't realize you're on the court.
Mm-hmm.
I always know when Trey's on the court.
Yes.
Like, and it's a good thing because even defensively, like you're never going to be worried about if he's going to bring it each night. Like he's going to battle. He's going to go to war for you. And I just think there's scorers like this at 6'6", you all of a sudden add, like if you could score and make tough shots look easy, and then you start adding a couple little more counters, like things get really dangerous if you're a defender. And he's got that, he's on that path right now. And if everything checks out work ethic wise and all that intel is great, which I'm sure it's going to be, I would be jumping all in on this one. This might be a pick we look back and we're like, he went fifth. Why? Like, why did he go fifth?
He was like talking his shit at Hoop Summit during practices and getting in guys' face, not in like a bad way, but in like a competitive, like, hey, I'm here to compete, let's go, type of way. So I think teams are gonna absolutely love him, and we're already seeing him kind of consistently string together a lot of those counter moves and stuff. And again, just imagine him in 3 years when he has grown man strength. And I struggle to see a world in which he's not just a really, really fun and dynamic and high level offensive creator.
He seems like we all of a sudden look up and he goes third. Like some team's just going to be like, because if you see it, if you're a team that just sees it and sees like the path and you're like, oh my gosh, like, we always joke like, hey, Washington got Cooper Flagg, would be fantastic. What if Washington lands Tre Johnson? If you have Bub, Trey, Keyshawn George, and Sarr to kind of get going with, like, just a lot of fun. Every team wants this guy. Like, every team wants this type of player of, like, the electric scorer with good size. Like, Klay Thompson? Never know. Like, dangerous. And if you think it's a lethal scorer with multi-level scoring ability, like there's still stuff he needs to work on. I want to see the finishing numbers kind of climb a little bit. Consistency defensively, yes. Playmaking, I'd love that. I don't know. Do you think when people just get pissed about the playmaking, they're like, hey, can you just have one game where you have like 9 assists and then I'll shut up?
No, because then it'll just be an outlier. It's a fluke. Just so I don't sound like a total shill for him. With the playmaking, it's more so that he's not passing guys open. Like he's not creating for other guys necessarily. He's more so leveraging his scoring gravity to collapse and shift the defense and then counter those those rotations. Yeah, maybe
he's not always doing it. He's not always doing
more
it.
Of like a point guard primary initiator role is kind of what I meant, if that makes a little more sense.
He's doing it after he has no choice because he's getting the kitchen sink thrown at him, which is fine. But people would probably like to see him be able to create those looks for teammates without being on fire. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
No, say no. Say no. You can say no.
No, but I'm just trying to better kind of articulate his NBA.
So I'm done.
His playmaking. No, from my standpoint, chill. His kind of playmaking translation to his most likely NBA role, and that's more as like a second side creator within the flow of an offense type of passer and playmaker, not necessarily a hey, I'm going to bring the ball, not a James Harden shifting and becoming a point guard type of playmaker.
Okay, I agree.
Did that make any more sense, or did I just make
Yeah,
it more confusing?
No, you did. You did. We've done it long enough. Do you want to get on to the Jeremiah Fears hours?
Are we going Jeremy Fears or Jeremiah Fears?
Jeremiah. I don't know where that one came from.
Jeremiah Fears, freshman point guard from Oklahoma. Holy fuck, can this kid play? God, I'm cursing like a sailor tonight. I'm sorry, folks, but I'm just
okay.
pumped.
It's okay.
Christmas season. I missed last week. Ready to roll. Spicy episode. This kid is playing out of his mind. In case you missed it in the open for some reason, I'll have a full profile on Jeremiah Fears up at NoCeilingsNBA.com Friday morning. Go check it out. It is free. I don't know where to start.
Hansel, so hot right now. Hansel.
God. I was earlier today. I was literally I was like, oh man, I don't have time, but I kind of want to clip that and run it as a segment.
My movie memes are rubbing off on you. I'm very proud of that.
I love Zoolander. That movie rocks.
I haven't watched the second one. I refuse to do it.
I'm scared that it'll totally ruin it. I've heard nothing but horrible things about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna trust everyone on that one. Fears is unreal. I don't know how high is too high.
6.
Why is it too high?
I don't know, but that's where I have him. So I was trying to get a sanity check.
But like, I don't like someone could tell me right now, like I take him 4th and be like, all right, I see it. This dude fucking rocks.
Yeah.
Like I just watch him play and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. This is fantastic. And this is why the draft is so sweet, because every year we're always like, oh, these are going to be the names. These are the big guys. And just this party crasher, this golden ticket comes out of nowhere. And we're like, this class that rocks just got even better. So Jeremiah Fears, I love you. I mean, I've been telling you for weeks, like I've been trying to figure out who he reminds me of. And I've listed 10 awesome guards. And it's like, I like every one of them. Like, I see some Stephon Marbury in his game. I see some Gilbert Arenas. You've said Dame Lillard. I like that one. You said Jaden Ivey without like the vertical pop. I guess without being like a fighter jet on the runway. Who else did we talk about? You had a couple good ones.
Garland.
Darius Garland's a good one.
A fan mentioned Brandon Roy.
Mentioned Brandon Roy. I was like, that's getting a little bit outside the box, but I like that.
There's just
about
so
20
much
pounds lighter than Brandon Roy.
How big do you think he actually is? Because like his recruiting profile had him listed at 6'2", 165, and then ESPN has him listed at like 6'4", 182, I think right now. I would guess somewhere in the middle.
If he's 6, I could see him being 6'4".
You think?
Yeah, he looks a little stretched out on the floor. That's always a tough one because then you have to like kind of go look at the rest of the roster and you're like, okay, is it just my eyes tricking me? Also, usually like why I'm a guy like this, I'd be like, I have to go see him in person just because I'm like, I have to see like, are we legit here? Are we favorable and maybe only 6'3"? I mean, if he's 6'4", the problem is on TV. He looks like he has an outstanding frame to add like good FU weight. Like,
is it just me or does he kind of look like he's drowning in his jersey?
A little bit.
Okay, but you're talking like long term, like frame, like
like he's starting to get cut up a little bit, but he looks like like I could probably put on a good 10 and be set. He plays with great poise. He plays with great, I buy the shot. There's good balance everywhere. There's some good vision, good defense. It's just one of those, like, you're like, oh, this is fantastic. I'm very excited about this. So I don't know how high is too high right now. I really don't, because if you are seeing a world, and he has a stretch coming up, Metcalf. And if he keeps doing this through like this gauntlet, we're all going to be talking about him top 6. Like it's a gauntlet. I'm gonna find it. So go ahead, run on. It's a very big gauntlet if he goes through it.
But like I don't see any reason why he shouldn't. And the biggest, and what stands out the most with him is how insane his handle is. I mean, that ball is always on a string, and he's so composed and comfortable in traffic. Where he's splitting defenders and jumping into a double team, then looking off defenders and creating for his teammates at the rim or on the weak side. And that ability to get downhill. And what I especially love about his kind of rim pressure is that if he sees an open pocket where the defenders are sagging off or miscommunication or something, he doesn't just settle for a jumper. He takes it all the way to the rim. He's really aggressive. Like, yeah, he's really slender right now, but man, that kid is physical and has an insanely high free throw rate. And I think he's second among all freshmen behind Dylan Harper in total free throw attempts. So even when the shot isn't necessarily falling, he's racking up easy points because he's getting to the line 7 times a game. He's scored in double digits every single game this year. And that ability to constantly get downhill in isolation, out of the pick and roll and transition, out of DHOs, attacking closeouts, there isn't just one way that he does it. And we talked a lot earlier about having those counter moves. He has about 40 of them. And that ability to get downhill and get to the rim whenever he wants obviously creates easy buckets for himself, but it also creates a ton of playmaking opportunities and setting his teammates up for wide open looks. And he has the vision and composure and passing accuracy to consistently find them. And he has a usage rate over 30 and a assist rate over 30 as well. So it's like, yeah, he's kind of turning it over a lot, but man, some of the risks and creativity that's in this kid's game, and he reclassified up a year. I don't care about the turnovers. Miss me with all of the turnover talk. I do not care at all. Does he have to clean it up eventually? Sure, I guess. But so many of the passes that he's making are so high level, and what's being asked of him from an offensive responsibility standpoint is insane. Like we talked about, not all shot selections created the same. Not all turnovers are created the same. Like Cam Jones right now, assist rate over 40, turnover rate under 10, insane stuff. Would be the first guy dating back to 2008 to do it. But when you watch his playmaking, it's all 2-man game stuff. It's great decision making, but he's a really good passer. He's not a great playmaker. And Jeremiah Fears right now is looking like an elite playmaker.
You know, when you're watching football, NFL for the soccer fans out there, football, and you're like, you can just like an elite quarterback's just locked in. Like, okay, let's get serious here. Let's both stab each other in the heart, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, you're a Lions fan. I'm a Viking fan. You know, when Rodgers was just like in his prime and just would pick, you'd watch these games and you're like, I hate every pass is like perfectly thrown, accurate, and you just can't do anything about it. Fears has those games where he's just throwing people open, and you're like, how the hell did he find that? Like, the first time I'm evaluating, I'm like, okay, like I get it. 6'4", good frame. He's probably going to be this athletic with a shaky shot that I'm going to be like, okay, I'll try to get excited about him. You start watching and you're like, holy crap, he does everything. Like, I love the way he plays. And then you keep watching more and he's making some reads that are ridiculous. Just turned 18 in October. Good size, good frame. Like you said, reclassified. Like, I don't give a shit about the turnovers right now because I'm watching what he does on the court and holy crap. Like, this is a special player. This is a very, very fun prospect. So I got this list up. Here's the gauntlet. For everyone, a little future heads up. January 4th, clear your damn schedules. It's probably going to be one of the best days of college basketball all year. So they play Bama on the road that day. Next game will be at home against the 12th ranked Texas A&M. Then they play Georgia at Georgia. Then home against Texas. Then home against South Carolina. Then at Arkansas. Then at A&M. Then home against Vanderbilt. Then here you go. They go at Auburn, home against Tennessee. So if he cooks through that gauntlet. Ooh,
I cannot wait for that Boogie Flan matchup.
No, I can't. I can't wait for that either. But I mean, you can also like Baron Philon and him. Like,
yeah,
it's gonna be a gauntlet. Then you're gonna get him and Tre Johnson. Like, he's gonna be battle tested. So things are gonna get very interesting if he's still doing this. And it's exactly what you just said earlier. I don't see why he can't. It's just the way he plays. I love how much he gets to the line.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. Like because
you can get guys to be stronger. You can improve their shot. You can improve their handle. It's really difficult to change mindset. It's really difficult to make a guy more aggressive and more crafty around the rim. We saw that with Terquavion Smith, where he would actively avoid contact. He would get to the rim a lot, but he would actively manipulate and contort his body in a way to avoid contact. And it's like, man, you are missing out on a dozen points a game because of it. And Fierce is like, nah, fuck that. Hammer me.
It's a skill. It is a talent. If you know how to get to the line, it is a talent. It is a very, very special skill because you make yourself even a more dangerous offensive player because you're like, my shot's not falling. I can get to the line, get myself in the groove, get me feeling good, and then go back to work. And a lot of special stuff is cooking for him right now. He just has different ways he can pick you apart and kind of get you all messed up defensively. I'm in a dangerous world because I don't know how high is too high right now.
I'm kind of at the point where I don't really care what the numbers are through that stretch that you just mentioned. Obviously, it'd be great if he just went off and, was posting double doubles, triple doubles constantly. Right. But I'm just more intrigued with the process at this point. I've seen him be able to post incredible numbers against really good teams. That Michigan team is very good. That Arizona team,
right. No,
a little funny constructed, but there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent. There's experience. There's athleticism there.
There's experience.
But like he's played like 6 or 7 major program, like high major programs, and he's put up awesome numbers. So I've seen him do that. It's more so he's going to go through a funk.
Yeah,
a guy that we just saw last year, Bub Carrington. Very different players. But this feels like a similar kind of track where Bub got off to an insane start, posting monster numbers, and then kind of went through a lull where the shot stopped falling and people kind of cooled on him. It's like, he's not actually a one and done. And then things heated back up again. It's like, oh, look, he's a lottery guy. It wouldn't shock me if Fierce goes through something similar, but as long as the process and approach is kind of the same, I'm not going to be too concerned about the numbers because from now on he is number 1 with a bullet on the other team's scouting report. So he is the guy. It won't shock me if he starts getting more doubles, if teams are going to play really physical with him, and that's what I'm going to be more intrigued about.
I 100% agree. I think that's what I was trying to say with you when I was saying like survives. It's like
yeah.
I don't give a shit about the numbers. Like I give a shit about like what is the tape going to tell me? Like, because you're spot on. Public enemy number 1 on every other team scouting report right now. This is a big circle. Like, we have to stop Jeremiah Fears, and he's gonna face some heck of defenders on that stretch. Like, they're gonna give him the business, and I want to see just how his processing, the turnovers. We said, hey, we don't care about him now, but like, if they all of a sudden double in that stretch, I'm gonna be a little concerned if you're getting better level defensive guys, and I think he'll be fine. Like, those are just stretches I don't want to see. Like, do you just collapse for a 7-game stretch, or do you kind of battle? You have a bad game, you battle back. Like this game, your shot wasn't falling, but you really did good as a distributor. You got after it defensively. Those are the games I just want to see the tape, and that's why we always say conference plays where it gets really cooking for prospects, because you start to see prospects separating themselves and really finding their groove.
Absolutely. Should we move on to Green Room, wrap this up?
Perfect. Right. Absolutely.
Love it. All right. Well, it is the most exclusive club in the basketball world. No more than 14 can get in. But don't worry, it's not our lottery rankings. For those unfamiliar with the Green Room, welcome. Exclusive club for the draft world. max of 14 guys get in. Currently, there's only Cooper Flagg, Tre Johnson, and Derek Queen who are in the green room. In line, we have Yegor Demon, Asa Newell, Dylan Harper, LeBaron Philon, and the credentials to get in. It's not just about big board ranking. It plays a factor, but talent, vibes, performance, vibes. I almost said it. I didn't, though. I already made a fool of myself last time. But we each nominate one guy to get in line, and then only one guy goes in. Guys can be removed once they're in. Doesn't mean they're locked in. But Cooper Flagg, Tre Johnson, Derek Queen. Anyone need to be booted?
No. Wow. Okay. No, they're all in. Okay, this is good. And then give me the line one more time.
So in line, we have Yegor Demon, Asa Newell, Dylan Harper, LeBaron Philon, and I'm going to put Jeremiah Fears in line.
I was going to say, I have a very strong feeling about who you're going to nominate. LeBaron's in there. Yegor's in there. I'm in line. Sorry.
In line is Yegor, Asa, Harper, Philon, Fears.
Wow, we have Harper in line.
I know. Well,
in this economy,
we missed last week. I think you.
Oh, that's true.
We could do 2 this week since
I could do 2.
Jeez.
Is there? Do I need to nominate? No, I would have.
Yeah, you got to put someone in line.
Okay, I got to put someone in line.
That's why I sprinted to and undercut you there because.
No, it's okay. I was like, hey, come on, dude. A heck of a transition right there. Gosh, who do I even think deserves to get in? Oh, my list is all over the place, so I have to shoot from the hip. Who's been impressing?
See, when you shoot from the hip, that's when you know it's real because they're top of mind. You don't have to remind yourself on a list.
Yeah, I just sometimes like to see names so then I can be like, I don't know if I'm Boogie, maybe. Neat Clifford's too early. Give me some names.
It's just line.
Yeah, I know, but who deserves to be in line right now? I mean, Boogie's been
Thomas Sorber.
I can't go there yet. I can't go there yet. I haven't. No, can't go there yet.
Ace, Casper.
Oh gosh, Casper. Whoa. Sorry, Casperus. My knight in shining armor. Easy. Yeah. Gosh. I would have seen that and been like, oh my gosh.
Kasparis Yakashonis. Welcome to the line. All right. This is tough. Are we going to put 2 in?
Yeah, we're going to put 2 in.
Okay.
Is there any other 2 that it's not obvious?
I think it's between 3 guys. I think it's between Harper, Fears, and Casper. But I'm leaning towards 2. The first 2.
I think Casper's gotten up to the front of the line, but he's not in yet. I think it's got to be Harper and Fears.
Love it.
In my opinion. Fears is just Hansel hot. Got to have him in there. Also, I can't get over the idea of someone getting into the club and being like, welcome, Mr. Fears. Like, that sounds like really cool. So that's a high level aura right there.
There's a lot of wordplay. Yeah. You hated yourself for saying it, didn't you? It felt gross. It felt wrong.
It felt worse than hearing you say.
No, it didn't.
I tried to just roll with it. I hated it.
It's the worst. I hate it so much. God, I'm old.
It makes you feel old.
It just feels wrong when you say it. It's
trying to think of what else. Yeah, I mean, Fierce is just and then Harper's. That seems like a good buddy cop movie, like Dylan Harper and Fierce getting in together. Maybe they're just good friends. Anyone else in line that you have thoughts about?
Yegor, I just need to get healthy. Asa, I'm excited for conference play. Philon, starting to worry about the shot.
I'm still intrigued with him. I still have
him in my first, but
I'm trying to figure out where I have you in my first. I don't mean this in a bad way. Like when I first watched him, I was just kind of like, oh man, I'd love to get him late teens, early 20s. And then he got hot and I was like, I don't know if we're going to be able to get there. And then now I'm like, oh, maybe you can. Maybe you can get him and scoop him. So I like him a lot. It's just one of those players you're like, oh, maybe I could get him. And he's kind of like a high upside, like really cooking by the second or third year. But I still like his game a good bit. But the shot, the shot.
Always but at that point, it wouldn't shock me if he ends up returning for his sophomore year.
Yeah, or he goes 15th somehow. Because that is all it takes is one team. But
yeah.
Who else? Who else you got thoughts about?
Oh, everyone and no one. Sorber's kind of fun. I kind of get it.
Oh man,
I need more time, but
yeah, I need more time.
Rasher Fleming rocks.
I'm getting dangerous with him.
I noticed some people hopped on our train of thought with Malawach.
Well, you don't want to put him in line? You're a good bouncer.
Woody?
I like him. I can't buy that. There's some people coming out saying like, hey, big teams will overlook it. What? But he's getting 2-1 some games. I just can't do it. Shout out to Long John Silver. Yes, that's the name in the comments. Said Boyles. Boyles could be a good line guy. Not yet, but
where are you at with Colin?
I think very fit dependent.
Yeah.
Which is really tough when evaluating because when I watch him, I'm like, hell yeah. Like but if the draft's always about fit, but I always think like, hey, if I was in a war room, first thing I'm doing is looking at my whole roster, and I'm gonna have my roster up there and be like, is this piece gonna fit here? If you have a team full of non-shooters, Colin Murray Boyles couldn't be a worse fit. Now, if you have a team of shooters, like if I got Colin Murray Boyles on the Suns, oh my goodness, like because it's just you're cooking with stuff. You get him on the Warriors, fantastic.
Yeah.
Just very tough. Like even with the Rockets, I'd love him with the Rockets, but it's tough to get those guys unless you're really buying the shot, like unlocking. And I don't feel like I've seen enough to be like,
His 6 3-point attempts so far isn't enough volume.
No, it just seems like it's a lot of last year. Yeah. You're like, hey, but also it's like, hey, it's just dominating.
He is.
Like, so, I mean, what about you? What do you think? I like him. We still have him. Like, I would take him lottery. I think he'll slip probably past that, but like, I would go trade up for him
if it was the right team.
Yeah, I would go trade up for him. Orlando,
there are teams I love him with, and like you said, absolutely hate him with. Like Warriors, obviously very fun. I
mean, they have that with TJD, but like I'd still like.
Yeah, but
I'd go get another one.
Let him learn from Kyle Anderson for a year, or however. I don't know what Kyle's contract is. But or the Knicks, playing with alongside like a stretch 5, provides some rim protection and rebounding, defensive versatility there as well. So he's a fun player. It's just really tricky eval.
You have to, if you're drafting him to live off of his strengths early on. I know everyone's gonna be like, well, that's obvious. No, like with Murray Boyles, if you're drafting him and being like energetic rebounder, good defender, we just need him to do those. I don't care if he scores or shoots it. Oh, he's gonna be fantastic for you.
He's also a terrific passer.
Yeah, and a good passer. If you're asking him to be a focal point offensively, oh my goodness, buckle up for your life. But like, I don't know what Brooklyn's gonna do. Brooklyn has 47 draft picks next year. I'd take him because if you're visualizing a roster in which you can build around that and have him kind of as a mix, I get it. But I also, if I was Brooklyn, I'd be like, with all these picks, we're taking the best player. We'll figure this shit out down the road. So I like him. It's just tough because I'm like, what's my roster looking like? Because if I needed that at 8, I'd probably take it. Like if I was like, man, this is the missing piece. This is the ingredient we need. I would probably be taking him top 10, but it's a tricky one.
regardless, he's a fun player. This was a fun episode. Rucker, thank you as always. Everyone in the chat, you rocked. Thanks for hanging out. This was fun. But he is Tyler Rucker. You can follow him at Tyler_Rucker. I'm Tyler Metcalf. You can follow me at TMetcalf11 and Blue Sky at TylerMetcalf.bluesky. However long that thing goes. But all of our stuff's over at NoCeilingsNBA.com. Most of it's free. A lot of really good stuff for Plus subscribers too, including access to our private Discord and special pieces like Maxwell's spreadsheet sleepers that went up this week. Really good info. Fun way of looking at a bunch of different prospects. And that money goes directly to us being able to go and scout these guys in person and produce stuff like our in-person scouting notebook and in-person notes and better content for all of you guys. So love you all. Appreciate it. Have a Merry Christmas. Stay safe and enjoy some time with the family. Till next time. See ya.